On today's Locked On Bucks, the latest on Damian Lillard, a big update coming earlier today from Shams Charania. How much optimism should we take from that? And we take a look at the 4 remaining road games for this Bucks team coming up next here on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day and for checking out the Locked On Bucks newsletter. If you have not done so yet, you can still sign up for free at lockedondaily.com and get your day started with the all-new free Locked On Bucks newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by FanDuel, and the time is now. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Camille, let's not bury the lead here. The big news of the day: Shams Charania was it on everyone's favorite show that he broke this news? Pat McAfee show. That was where it was, right?
Yep.
Talking about Damian Lillard and his health and blood clots that he's been dealing with. You and I had to re-listen to what it was he actually said just to make sure we get the wording right. But look, the long and short of it is, according to Shams Charania, there is growing optimism that a return may be near. Now, how do you define near? We don't really get much information on that. Look, I think the big takeaway here is he's not playing in the regular season.
Right.
That wasn't explicitly said, but let's not bank on that. I still have a very hard time believing we'll see Damian Lillard in the first round of the playoffs, but Shams Charania said he's getting checked out. I mean, he has world-class treatment. They caught this early. They started working on it and put him on blood thinners earlier. It's starting to, whatever the verbiage he used was, shrinking the clot that he was dealing with, and they're optimistic he is going to play again this season.
Yeah, to hear Shams come out and say that Dame is hopeful to get cleared in the next week and a half to go start doing full contact and then resume basketball activities, like the timeline feels so quick to me where I was kind of shocked just hearing it, because from everything we've heard about blood clots, normally it's like a few months that somebody is going to be out. But hearing that, the Bucks were able to start his treatment early, the blood clot is decreasing, it's a chance that he could make his return. And to your point about maybe first round of playoffs, maybe a little bit after that, like even trying to line up the dates, like we're recording this, it's April 2nd. The regular season ends on the 13th of April. The play-in tournament is from like the 15th to the 18th, and the playoffs begin on the 19th. So we're a little over 2 weeks away from that. Yeah, a little over 2 weeks from the playoffs officially starting. And if the timeline is saying a week and a half on the later side is when they're hoping to have him resume basketball activities and then see how it goes from there. It looks like it could align with the first round of the playoffs, but I'm feeling a little bit more like you are, in the sense of I'm still not going to count on it. I'm not going to count on Dame being back, but if he does somehow make his return, the first thing that says is that, they don't think that anything is going to be threatening his health going forward, which is first and foremost, because again, the thing with blood clots is being on the blood thinners and what they can do to you if you receive extreme contact to your body. It can cause internal bleeding. So I'm pretty confident in the fact that the Bucks would not put Dame on the court if it's going to be a threat to his life or anything of that sort. But I am still shocked just to hear how much optimism they have around his return, especially when you look at the dates that they're putting out here. Well, not technically dates, but the time frames that are being
soft
around.
timelines. Yeah. Unless Dame is just under the YOLO approach here. You don't subscribe to everybody's favorite meme now, the Colin Cowherd one. You've seen those of, we're good. Hey, Dame, we're good. We got Ryan Rollins here. Don't worry about it. Like
we need them both. Like Ryan Rollins coming on has been a big plus, and he was someone who we talked about in the preseason. Like maybe he pops. He showed a little bit in summer league, and we saw him earlier this year. He looked good. The shoulder thing happened. We saw him kind of not look as good in a few games, and since he's returned to the lineup, he's been playing like a guy with something to prove. So I think Rollins having this level of play is important, even if Dame does come back, because Ryan Rollins provides very useful skill sets for you, regardless of if Dame is out there or not.
I gotta say too, while we're on the topic of Ryan Rollins, we had a few listeners and viewers that would point it out even last year of, hey, there's something with Ryan Rollins.
Mhm.
And I mean, I didn't feel strongly one way or another that we didn't really see that much. So either you just wanted to be the first to say first in the comment section, or you actually saw something. If it is the latter, hey, credit to you. And earlier this season, when we were continually talking about, is this the right starting lineup? We had a handful of people.
Mhm.
Ryan Rollins is the guy. And even then, with more that we had seen from Ryan Rollins, I wasn't quite there yet. Camille, I was wrong. I do think you have to strongly consider, if you do in fact get Damian Lillard back on the floor, when we talked about the two starting lineups approach,
Mhm.
possibly depending on matchups here. To me, that second starting lineup is Ryan Rollins starting next to Damian Lillard, and you play Torian Prince off the bench, or you play Kyle Kuzma off the bench, depending on the guard matchups.
I would not be mad at that, especially with what we've seen from Ryan Rollins, what he can do defensively, more consistently defensively at that. And on top of that, I mean, we've heard Doc mention the fact that Rollins can score. He's like, he's a combo guard. I don't look at Rollins necessarily as a point guard, but somebody who's a combo guard can come in and give you a lot, but he leads with his defense, and he's not afraid to knock down a bucket, and he can do that. And seeing that part of his game get more consistent, the offensive part coming along with the defensive part that we've already seen the flashes of potential with, it's been a positive for this Bucks team. If you're looking for the positives that have come out of the negative stretch that they've been on, you have to point to Ryan Rollins first, I think, of just how his play has stood out and what we've seen from him, and knowing like, hey, he could be somebody that could play an important part for you, which before the season, that might have sounded like, I think you and Frank said the joke of like what went wrong this season, but Rollins is coming through again at a time of the year where they're going to need that type of play, and he can be really important here.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it quite a bit on yesterday's show. So if you want your Ryan Rollins fix, go check that out. But yeah, I was most struck by Ryan Rollins, and not just yesterday, or 2 days ago, this past week or so. You know, when and Frank and I touched on everything that's kind of been put in front of him and what he's worked through, and the fact that when you bring in Kevin Porter Jr., you know, that's another guy that's placed in front of Ryan Rollins, and at the time of that deal, and in the aftermath immediately, he outplayed him, where you could see, man, Ryan Rollins, I don't know if he's like hit a wall or what's happened here, but Kevin Porter Jr. was the better option. I don't think that's even a conversation at this point with how Ryan Rollins has played. And I'm trying to stall and pull the numbers here, Camille, but the eye test tells you that Ryan Rollins is a much better fit on the floor with Giannis than Kevin Porter Jr. is.
Well, Kevin Porter Jr. is somebody, as we've mentioned, he's been a number one option before in his young NBA career so far. He is somebody who can thrive with the ball in his hand. And one of the challenges of being a guard playing next to Giannis is that you generally don't have the ball in your hand as much as you're accustomed to. And Ryan Rollins does tend to fit into that slot of just being a guy like, I can work off ball and I can make something happen really quickly. But it's like Kevin Porter Jr., one of his superpowers is having the ball in his hand, being able to probe, kind of create his own shots, and get others involved. And I should just say this too. Both are going to be important. You're going to need Kevin Porter Jr. You're going to need Ryan Rollins if it's looking like coming up here for the playoffs. But I definitely agree on just the fit. But that's not a bad thing for Kevin Porter Jr. either, because the role that he's going to be able to play as that guy who can kind of hold it down when you don't have any other ball handlers on the court is still important as well. And I mean, in the offseason, Doc mentioned he loves the balance of being able to have vets and young guys on his roster kind of push and pull on one another. And I think it's also important to have that spirit of competition just throughout your roster of knowing like, hey, we're teammates for sure, cheering each other on, but like, I want those minutes that you have and you want these minutes, and like, we're going to compete and put our best foot forward. I think that type of competition is healthy. And it's a good thing for a team, even thinking back to like young Giannis and Chris, where they talked about being in practice and training and battling with one another and how it pushed them to both be better. I think having that competition on a roster is a good thing. And I'm not saying that's what's happening with Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr., but they are two guards that are going to be competing for minutes in a certain sense. So I think it's positive to have two guys like that on the roster, and have that level of competition there as well.
We have the numbers. We'll share the numbers after the break because one thing really stands out in looking at Ryan Rollins on the floor with Giannis versus Kevin Porter Jr. on the floor with Giannis. So we'll share those numbers and take a look at the standings here and the schedule ahead for the Bucks coming up next on Locked On Bucks. Well, time to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NCAA tournament is here. We're nearing the end of it as well. And FanDuel giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. It's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. You can pick your favorites if you got your eye out on a few underdogs this year. FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. Stay in on the action with tournament games happening almost every day. There's always something exciting to bet on. And the FanDuel app is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. The numbers. With Kevin Porter Jr. and Giannis on the floor together. We've seen that for just under 400 possessions this year. The Bucks are in middle of the pack offensively, a 115.7 offensive rating. Same story defensively, a 113.7 defensive rating. They have forced a pretty high volume of turnovers defensively in those minutes. And they've also been pretty good on the defensive glass, which I suppose, hey, this is the winning lineup if you're going to defensive rebound with those guys on the floor. But just a +2 net rating in those minutes where it's all right. The numbers aren't bad. The numbers are just kind of average, save for the defensive rebounding and the turnovers. With Ryan Rollins, the Bucks, Ryan Rollins and Giannis on the floor together, the Bucks are just under a +10 in net rating. They're a 127.8 offensive rating.
Okay.
And this is just under 700 possessions. Not a huge sample size, but it's not tiny. Just under 128 offensive rating, which is the 99th percentile.
Yeah.
Defensive efficiency overall is a 118, which is certainly not great. But if we just hone in on the starting lineups that we've started to see more and more of, Ryan Rollins, Taurean Prince, Kyle Kuzma, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. You've seen that grouping together for just under 200 possessions. They're a +20.8 net rating, a 130.3 offensive rating, and a 109.5 defensive rating.
That'll play.
So it backs the eye test is, hey, this group works, and especially Ryan Rollins and Giannis. And look at, it's not a huge sample size, just under 200 lineups. I'm sure a lot of the pushback could and would be, this has really just happened recently. And look at the teams that the Bucks have played recently, even with, a 4-game losing streak in there. But it's at least to the levels where you're thinking, all right, I'm intrigued and I want to continue to see more of this.
I think that's the key part. I'm intrigued. I want to see more of this going forward. And that's the way I think it has to be. I mean, we saw earlier this season when Doc inserted Andre Jackson Jr. into the lineup, just kind of get that jolt. The winning started, and it was like, okay, we're going to keep rocking with this. Doc has shown us that he is not afraid to change the lineup and just tweak things in the rotation if he thinks that something is going to work better than what has already been done. And especially given the conversations we've had over the last couple of weeks with the defense and just around kind of like execution, like just to have guys out there that are executing at a high level, that's what you need to continue to lean on. So seeing something starting to work came about again because Dame's injuries came about. So you had to do something here, and seeing Rollins come back in and really take advantage of those minutes. Like, I think you have to continue to find a way to keep getting him these minutes. Like before that Lakers game, he hadn't seen double-digit scoring until like almost shortly right after the All-Star break, right before All-Star break. So seeing Rollins come back in and perform, and even though like some of the games he had before this recent stretch where like the shooting wasn't there, the defense has been pretty consistent for him. So I think there's something to Ryan Rollins, and I'm on board with seeing him continue to remain in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I mean, look, you feel like, granted, the contracts are up this summer, but you have the bird rights on Ryan Rollins. You feel like we got a pretty good stable relationship here in the fact that we wanted you a part of this and brought you from New York with Jericho Sims. I'm not saying these guys are starters, but you at least are getting more playable young talent in the mix for this team to continue to sprinkle around Giannis and whoever knows, whatever path this roster takes and this organization as a whole takes in the summer here. So it brings us to where the Bucks currently sit in the standings at 6th, at 41-34. They have not officially clinched a playoff spot yet. They are a postseason team because the Toronto Raptors were eliminated with last night's loss or with Tuesday night's loss. So we do know the 10 teams that are in the postseason in the Eastern Conference. All we know is the Celtics are we don't know this, but we feel pretty strongly Cavs are going to be the 1 seed. Celtics are going to be the 2 seed. Knicks are going to be the 3 seed. The Bulls in those play-in tournament teams, they can't get into the 6th seed. So only the Magic, Hawks, and Heat have a chance to catch right now the Bucks and get out of the play-in tournament. But the margin is, that win by the Bucks over the Suns. It doesn't slam the door on it, but it's all right. This is going to take a monumental collapse and an incredibly hot finish to the season by the Hawks and Magic for them to catch you here. So we're about a day away from the Bucks officially clinching a playoff and not postseason berth here. But in the interim, you're a game back of the Detroit Pistons for the 5 seed. Pistons are playing or about to play as we record this now on Wednesday night against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we talked about the schedule that Detroit has coming up here in how it starts to pick up. This is your opportunity. And I feel like a broken record, Camille, because I think we've said this at least 3 or 4 times this season, and especially lately. But this is your opportunity. The Pistons have the Thunder tonight. They got the Raptors who have been eliminated after that. But then they have the Grizzlies who are fighting for playoff seeding. They have the Kings who are fighting for playoff seeding. I would assume the Knicks are probably going to have the 3 seed wrapped up by the time they have that game. And it brings us to the 2 most important games of the season, with home against the Bucks and on the road in Milwaukee, the final weekend of the regular season. So the point of all of it is, look, those 2 games, unless Detroit or unless you go on just an abysmal stretch of play here over the course of the next, 5 games, those 2 games are probably going to decide everything. But in the here and now, you can catch and or give yourself a little bit of distance too, where it reaches the point of, hey, you could go into that series, best case scenario against the Pistons, up a game in the standings, where you win in Detroit on that Friday night, you clinch in front of them, or you lose and it's going to come down to Sunday afternoon in Milwaukee. But their schedule, they took their lumps and started to get through the difficult part. Now they really got 1, maybe 2 challenges left before those 2 matchups with the Bucks.
Well, let me say this about the Bucks here. I can't handle another losing streak like we just had. Not this close to the playoffs, Justin. I don't want to see that anymore. But on the Pistons side of things, you mentioned the fact that they're playing the Thunder tonight, and Cade Cunningham is still listed as doubtful. Yeah. And we know that Marcus Sazzer and Isaiah Stewart and Ron Holland are going to be out as well because of the suspension that they got from the Pistons Wolf quote unquote brawl pushing fiasco there. So that's going to be a tough game for them tonight against the Thunder, which again, of course, is going to help the Bucks out in the standings, given the fact that the Bucks are just a game behind the Pistons in the standings as we record this. So if they lose this one night when the Bucks go idle, you have 2 teams there saying it's getting closer. And then as you said, it comes down to those last 2 games of the season. Ideally, with what the Bucks have in front of them, at Philly, at Miami, at New Orleans, in this 3-game road trip they have coming up, that Miami game is probably going to be the toughest. Well, I shouldn't say probably. That's the toughest game on paper on the schedule here for the Bucks, with the way the Miami Heat have been playing over the last week or so for them. I think they're on a 5-game winning streak right now. So things have been going well for them, but the Bucks have to take care of business. Like, they've got breaks this season of like, hey, they've been losing, but the East around them has been bad. So, they're not falling too far behind. And now we're starting to get low on time, but they are still in the situation here where they can largely control what's going to happen to them come playoff time. That 5 seed is still in play for them. So, like, I think you got to go for it.
Yeah, and the schedule that the Bucks have, look, after a 4-game losing streak and 9 out of 13 losses, it's really tough to say, okay, here's where the opportunities lie. But the fact is, these are opportunities for the Bucks. Later on tonight, Philadelphia, they're actively tanking and have shut everything down on their end here. So again, we're going to revisit the must-win game. I'm not going to call anything must-win, but Camille, you can't lose this game to the Philadelphia 76ers, knowing what they're putting out there and what their goal is. Philadelphia understands the mission. The Bucks need to as well. The Pelicans, you have twice. And granted, there's a back-to-back. That's both of those games are a part of a back-to-back. But the Pelicans, one of the worst records in the league, and they have now officially shut down both Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum. So they are trying to tank to the bottom as well. Miami Heat, you've had a lot of success against this season, and they were arguably quiet quitting earlier in the season when they had a 9-game or 10-game losing streak, the first time that it ever happened under Eric Spoelstra. They've won 4 in a row, I believe.
5, I think. Bounced back from a 10-game losing streak with a 5-game winning streak.
Yeah, so they're playing better. But again, even without Damian Lillard, it's a game you need to expect to win, which brings you to basically you got the 2 huge games with the Pistons and you got the Minnesota Timberwolves. To me, the expectation has to be at worst 4-1 going into those 2 games with the Pistons. And if you do that, you're in a pretty good spot, not just for the 5 seed, depending on what happens with Indiana and a couple challenges they have left. I think we talked about this on a show somewhat recently. The thing that throws off the Pacers' strength of schedule is the fact that they do have 2 games with the Cavs, but those are game
Cavs
number 80. Yeah, 80 and 82. Cavs have regressed to that point, but it's game 80 and 82. So Cleveland will very likely have the 1 seed locked up by the time those games are played. They do have the Denver Nuggets. Other than that, Hornets, Jazz, Washington Wizards, and Magic. Stranger things have happened. But look, if you don't go 4-1, you have no chance at the 4 seed, essentially.
Yeah, the 4 seed would definitely be out the question if you can't go at least 4-1 over these next 5 games. And the positive thing for the Bucks too, after they finish up this 3-game road trip in Philly, Miami, New Orleans, they know like once they get back home and then they have the Timberwolves there, at least Bobby Portis is returning for that game against the Timberwolves. Like, we're almost at the point where this 25-game suspension has been served. And it comes right after the Bucks finish up this upcoming road trip. So there's more help on the horizon coming outside of the reports about Damian Lillard. And it feels weird to put like Dame and Bobby in the same, like, oh yeah, the return. But Bobby's an important part of this team with their front court rotation, and him coming back, I think for these last 4 games is going to be huge for them down the stretch here with what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's the rebounding. We touched on it with Frank on the post-game show last time out. I mean, that's the biggest thing that has to improve for this Bucks team to really start to take a step forward. We touched on the standings for this Bucks team and everything else in front of them, but that schedule we just ran through, can they get to 500 on the road with those opportunities? And what would that mean? So we'll touch on that and start to wrap things up coming up next on Locked On Bucks. Daylight savings snuck up on all of us once again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun. Sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament or recently watching West Coast Bucks games, maybe you're squeezing in a round of golf after work or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Basketball madness, we're in the midst of it right now, staying up late, watching tournament games, watching the Bucks as well, and 5-Hour Energy helps keep all of us up and at 'em the next day. With the extra daylight come extra activities. Longer days mean we all love to get outside for a hike, a round of golf, a run, you name it. Use a tropical burst as your go-to flavor for a quick boost. And best of all, 5-Hour Energy is on-the-go convenience. Whether you're at a game or traveling, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and keeps you feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and get it delivered directly to your door. If you need one now, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5-Hour Energy. You know, back in my day, Camille, there was 2 flavors of 5-Hour Energy. It was grape, 3 flavors, grape, pomegranate, and berry. And now we got all these exotic flavors and the extra strength as well. But it's kept all of us going with these late night West Coast Bucks games that we've now put behind us. Look, one of the marks of a good team, or at least a trustworthy team, is can you win on the road? You don't have to be like the Boston Celtics and the fact that they're pushing for the best road record in the history of the NBA. But you have to be better than what we've seen from the Bucks of late here. 16-20 on the road. That is right now the worst record on the road of any team in the top 8 in the Eastern Conference. And any team that's in the top 8 in the West and the top 10 or top 8 in the East and the top 10 in the West. So it's not company that you want to be in. You can, the silver lining, get to 500, but that's going to require a win in Philadelphia. As we said, maybe not must win, but you can't lose it. A win in Miami, a win in New Orleans, and then your final road game, a win in Detroit. If I gave you 16-20 with 4 games left on the road, if I said the over-under for Bucks road wins this season was 18.5, you taking the over or the under?
Before the season started, would I have taken the over?
Right now? Before the season started, I think we all would have taken the over.
Yeah, it would definitely have been over at that time. Ooh, that's okay. So it means they need to go 19, so they have to go 3-1 to be able to hit that over. I'm gonna take the over on it. And maybe that's just some foolish optimism at this point. But looking at what's in front of them, Miami winnable, New Orleans winnable. Even though that's second night of a back-to-back. The tricky part for me is the Miami game and the Detroit game, where it's like if you can go 1-1 in those 2 games, ideally if the Bucks could win that last game in Detroit, I think it sets them up nicely to be able to rest that Sunday going into the playoffs, get more extra rest for their guys. Older team kind of need that. But it's that Miami game and this upcoming 3-game road trip. That's the one that has me a little bit nervous. And I know how Detroit's going to be when they get to that point. So 2-2, 3-1 feels like the outcome here for them on the road. But man, if they can finish 3-1, this is the optimism part talking, like a 3-1 road record or better. If they do finish 4-0 and get that back up to 500, like it would just do wonders for how I felt about this team heading into the playoffs here. But Philly, New Orleans on the road should be wins. Miami, Detroit going to be a little bit more tricky, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd probably take the over, but if you ask me, the over-under is 19.5. Would you take the over or the under?
No, I'd take the under on that one.
I'd take the under on that one. As optimistic and as hopeful as we want to be here, we've just seen this team struggle on the road. That I as much as we said, look, it's not like you're closing out with 4 road games against the Celtics, the Cavs, the Thunder, and the Denver Nuggets or something like that. These are winnable games for the Bucks, but again, we've seen them go 16-20 on the road, and we've heard Doc Rivers harp on this throughout this season, last season as well. Of like, we got to find ways to win on the road, and that really looms especially large, Camille, for a team that is very likely not going to have home court advantage in their first round playoff series.
Oof, and that's man was hoping to be able to get that home court advantage. Like I've heard, Giannis talk about like, we've been in 3 seed before, we've been in different seeds, different times. It doesn't matter. Be healthy, go out there, be playing your best basketball, and I definitely get that. But again, when you look at the road home splits for the Milwaukee Bucks, you'd feel a lot better if they're able to have more home games than not when it comes down to the playoffs. But based on the play over the last couple of weeks here, getting to that 4 seed is going to be difficult, even though you have the tiebreaker over the Pacers. So for the Bucks, now it feels like home court advantage is going to be out of the conversation for them come playoff time. So being able to finish the season up strong on the road, again, the competition level isn't as high there, but doing so bodes well, given where you're probably going to end up being placed in the standings come playoff time anyways.
Yeah, it's not impossible. The ship hasn't sailed, but you are gonna need some help from Indiana too. Like you have to take advantage of the schedule that you have in these winnable games, but you're also gonna need Indiana to have at least one of those games where it's, wow, the Pacers lost to this team, right? Like that's what it's gonna require to catch Indiana. And it's just, fretting over catching the Pistons. To me, it's just that those 2 games that you have left with Detroit, I mean, that's what's going to determine everything. So as much as we can talk about, well, you win this game or this game or this game, the bottom line is, look, just don't enter that weekend. More than 2 games or more back of the Pistons, and you're in a good spot. Like even if you go into those final 2 games, one game back of Detroit, fine, win both games, and you're the 5 seed.
Yeah, and it's in their control, which is to get to this point of the season with the ups and downs that this Bucks team has had, and to think about, like I mentioned earlier, to begin the year when the Bucks started 2-8, and it was like, well, at least the rest of the East is also playing terribly. To get to the end of the season here, where it's like, hey, the Pacers have started to pick it up. You have the Pistons around you as well. The 1 seed's out of the question for you. The 2 seed's out of the question, and 3 seed's probably out of the question. But and 4 seed feels unlikely. But you're still going to be a playoff team, not a play-in team. And you still have the ability to jump even higher in the standings just based on how the schedule is going to shake out here with the Pistons coming at the end of the season. So like there are things within the Bucks' control. And I think that the best path forward for them is to just continue to focus on what's in front of them, not worry about what else is going on around them and with the Pistons and with the Pacers, but just continue to try to take it a game at a time, win at a time, and stack some success heading into the playoffs. Like last year, we did not stack success heading into the playoffs. We'll love to see that happen for them this year.
Let us know your thoughts. Where are the Bucks going to finish here? 4, 5, or 6? And how many road wins do the Bucks end up with? Currently have 16. They got to go 4-0 to get to 500. So where do the Bucks ultimately finish with their road record? We got one more show this week. It'll be the post-gamer for that matchup. Boy, should be a barn burner with the Philadelphia 76ers and whoever they trot out there. Quentin Grimes, Justin Edwards, Kyle Lowry is still playing for that team somehow. So
yeah, he just came back recently too. I was like, okay.
Yeah, the old pal Kyle Lowry. So it should be an interesting one later on there in Philadelphia. But leave your thoughts on the Bucks road record and where they ultimately finish here in the standings. That'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I am Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.